Big time seeding implications for the AFC in this one. The Texans are in LA on Saturday to play the Chargers. Both these teams sitting in a wild card spot right now, hoping for a shot to win their division. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Katie Caldwell. This is Jeff Lloyd. Jeff, let's start with the Chargers. What do you expect to see from this offense? This defensive line in Houston is no joke. And as you and I have talked about so many times, the Chargers are still working with a pretty decimated offensive line.
And this is one thing where you kinda gotta measure where maybe, this Chargers team is as far as maybe offensive balance. Is the one
Hmm.
thing I think they did do, pretty well on Sunday and, with the emergence and the return of Omarion Hampton is, you're starting to be able to get some semblance of a running game going here again.
Hmm.
Certainly, when you're gonna go against a defense like Houston, this will be kind of where, that litmus test is, is it real progress or are you just going to be able to run the ball for the sake of saying you ran the ball here for the Chargers? Um, and where they're at, and this is where it's tough because usually when you have offensive line issues, you usually think it's going to affect you more as far as pass blocking and those types of things
Mm.
because you end up with guys who normally don't play, or you have guys playing out of position, just not necessarily in their natural comfort zone. Certainly the strength of, the Chargers offense is probably Justin Herbert and all the targets that he's, excelled with all this year.
Hmm.
But, as we're starting to see over the last couple of weeks, balance is crucial, as far as offense in these games. And the thing is, as we get to the playoffs, everybody's offense is good. So
Yeah.
the key is obviously to try to make sure that you are limiting the amount of opportunities for your opposing offense. So, for the Chargers, this is a tough one because I mean, I think this is, in my opinion, probably two of the hotter teams in the AFC right now.
Yep.
They've certainly
Agree.
both gone through their issues this year.
Mhm.
And, Houston, we didn't think it was going to get to here. I mean, it was to the point where it looked like they were really rounding their way out. And,
Right.
with the issues, obviously, with, Indy. And then, of course, um, the emergence of Jacksonville, it just wasn't so smooth for Houston to just cruise right back up to the top. I mean, they still obviously have a
Mhm.
shot to do this year now. But for the Chargers, I think that's going to be key is because you're going to want to try to be able to run the ball and hope you have some success. The game, of course, could dictate itself where, it just ends up maybe it's Stroud versus, Herbert and, basically
Yeah.
last man standing with the ball is going to get the opportunity to get the win for his team.
Well, and even with that banged up O-line, we know that Justin Herbert is a guy that can extend plays with his legs. He's been playing some of his best football lately. It's hard to even believe that he had his hand injured and then surgery on his hand this season. It feels like it wasn't even a blip on the radar for him for how he's been playing.
I mean, I think it's one thing where you talk about obviously his play and certainly Aaron Rodgers to give the credit there as well. I mean, these
Mhm.
guys are kind of going out there almost doing it one-handed. And, basically, when you hear, we're going to get it taken care of, and then we just got to make sure he can do things with his left hand. Like,
Mhm.
no, like they're coming out of the operating room or, you're putting whatever cast on them and like, well, is there some way you can actually, can we use your left hand? Because
Yeah.
otherwise we could possibly have some issues here. Um, for me, that's always gonna be the things that, I think Herbert doesn't get as much credit for, because I think when the Chargers are going really well, I don't think Justin Herbert has any intention of running the ball.
Mm.
He has confidence in the guys, obviously, that do tilt to rock for the Chargers, of course. And when you have the weapons that he has, why in the world would you wanna run the ball? Obviously, you'd wanna throw it to them.
Yeah.
So I think he's really smart in kind of like, all right, it's man coverage. I look left, there's nothing there. If you're just gonna give me a simple 8, 9 yards, I'm just gonna take it. But I
Mhm.
think as the games pick up of importance here, that's certainly something that has to be on the mind of Justin Herbert is, whatever is going to lead to a positive. So if I gotta start using my legs a little bit more and he's probably doesn't get the credit, probably not the level, but I mean, when he runs and he starts using his legs, I mean, it's not much different than Josh Allen. I mean, you
I
don't
agree.
6'5" quarterbacks who weigh
Yep.
230 plus and move like they do. And, you start to see when, it's a nickel corner, maybe 5'9", 195 on his best day, you're in a real tough spot because, Herbert can go around you. He can simply go through you if he chooses to.
Mhm.
So, this is something where maybe if it doesn't end up where they can just run the ball out of a traditional setting, that, hey, we're just going to call more pass plays, but we'll give the opportunity and allow the opportunity for Justin to take what's there with his own legs.
How about this Texans offense? I don't love their run game, so it kind of feels like we'd need to see the best out of CJ Stroud and Nico Collins here. But as you and I have talked about, Jesse Minter has done such a great job with this defense, and the Chargers aren't always a team that you can pass the ball against.
This defense has really, come up, big, I would say, the last few weeks, and we talked about this a few weeks ago as they were starting to get bodies back.
Mhm.
They have 3 solid edges. I mean, any one of these guys are
Yep.
capable of double-digit sacks. The OA trade obviously was in the midst of what was going on. Of course, with Mac, and then Mac was able to come back, and now they
Mhm.
just have a nice 3-member rotation. And the thing I kind of like about their rotation is it doesn't seem that it's like any guy is pigeonholed to one side. So it really gives them the advantage where, hey, I think he needs to come off. He needs a blow.
Mm.
Or guys asking for a blow. And so it doesn't hurt because you can play any two of the three at any given time. Anyone can play on any given side. And they certainly have excelled and have been really good. The linebacking play, and they're going to lose Perriman, and Perriman's kind of lost his mind here a little bit lately. I mean, some of this stuff is just, like it's day one basics of what you can and cannot do on a football field. And I think part of it is also before we get to a point where Perriman hits somebody, when you have an absolute knock him down, drag out brawl, you just got to sit the guy down. But they're good in the middle,
Yeah.
and their safeties are good, and the safeties are so good that they're using Derwin James very similar to how the Ravens use Kyle Hamilton. It's you're just a chess piece. So where I think there's an advantage for you, and when you have these safeties that are 6'3", 6'4",
Mhm.
230, and basically linebacker size, but have the athleticism, play in the secondary, can play the slot, do it. And it just becomes such a tough one because you see these guys basically go to where they're going to set at like the last possible second. So you see these quarterbacks staring it down, like, where are you
Mhm.
going? Where's the tell? And a lot of times quarterbacks don't even get the tell. And Minter's certainly done an excellent job with that with this Chargers defense. And, I think this is probably something that's going to end up probably being a shootout because
I
I don't
agree.
think either team's really going to be able to run the ball with much effectiveness. And I don't think Houston or, Los Angeles necessarily cares in that matter. Like, if you tell me I got to put the game in the hands of CJ Stroud, or I got to put the game in the hands of
Not so
Justin
bad,
Herbert,
is it?
yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
good. We'll throw out the run game and let's just see where it goes from here.
Well, and after the slow start that you and I have talked about so many times, Texans are winners of 7 in a row. What looks different to you in the back half of the season for them?
Well, there was a lot of things. I mean, they basically revamped the offensive line, so that was certainly going to take time.
Right.
Um, they were able to overcome it, and it still seems so weird. I don't think anybody was ever anticipating Joe Mixon was not going to be a part of this team at all this season.
No.
'Cause I think there would have been more urgency. I mean, it was a great running back class, and, they were the ones, that, basically, went out and got Nick Chubb, and, they even said in the summer that they weren't really sure what they're gonna get from Nick, and Nick is certainly not the Nick Chubb that, the early 2000s that was early 2020s that was tearing up the NFL. But I think if Houston knew that there was an opportunity where Joe Mixon was not gonna be a part of this, I think somewhere along the line, they probably would have, gone with a little more urgency to bring in a running back to
Right.
basically, kind of cover the slack there. But overcoming that loss, then missing guys in the passing game, the 2 guys from Iowa State, the young guys developing, Nico Collins coming back and being the Nico Collins that he was in 2024 was huge.
Mhm.
And I think, CJ Stroud, there was, I think, just issues for him balancing it all. The offensive line, wasn't consistent. Not that it has been really much, but now it is developing a little consistency, and CJ Stroud can allow things to develop a little bit more. Early on in the season, he was really, it was either first read or it was back out or it was tight in the flat because I think he didn't have the overall confidence in the offensive line to truly allow something to develop.
This AFC West battle is so fun, coming right down to the wire, and still so surreal to me that that doesn't include the Kansas City Chiefs. But if the Chargers win out, they take the West. Their 2 final games, Texans at home, and then they visit the Broncos. So this is just such a fun division race. It's hard to overstate that last game what that's going to mean.
Yeah, and even like we had talked about this, even when the Chargers fell off the rails a little bit, in late September to early October, it was like, look, they're already 3-0 in the West, right?
Yes.
They're 5-0 in the West. So that 3-0 within the division was very, very key for them, even when they were kind of going through their rocky times and, got obviously, the ship on the right course.
Mhm.
I mean, in any division, to be able to say you could possibly run the table, let alone the AFC West. I mean, granted, you take the Raiders out of the equation, and the Chiefs aren't what necessarily we thought they were going to be. We thought
Right.
they were going to be more competitive than this, but to maybe say that at the end of this, you went 6-0 within that division, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And Denver, obviously, I mean, it's an easy one this week, but if the Chargers pull this off, you're still playing one for all the money in week 18.
Mhm.
And, if you're LA, I think for, what's gone on here this year, and, there were probably some nerve-wracking times early. I don't think for the Chargers, you could be more excited that the opportunity is still there for you.
Who do you like this one in this one, and what is your score prediction?
I think I like the Chargers just because. And there is a little momentum here. You gotta remember, who sent the Chargers home packing last year? The Houston
Yep,
Texans sent the Chargers home packing in the playoffs. So I am sure in Harbaugh within that building, there's certainly a reminder of that. And hey,
definitely.
if we can wreck your year, you wrecked ours last year, tit for tat, so to speak. I think I like the Chargers in this one just because I'm not sure Houston has necessarily been facing defenses that are playing at the level the Los Angeles Chargers defense is playing
Mhm.
at right now. And I think, for Houston, that could be something maybe that it's gonna take, you know, quarter and a half, 2 quarters into the 3rd quarter, maybe before they can get it going, where maybe Houston kinda already has their own momentum working for them.